Dear friends, Operator Starsky here, and this is In Time. Guys, please subscribe to this channel because you can find all kinds of recent updates from Ukraine analysis and all kinds of interesting guests, not including myself, of course, but I will be present here as well. Hopefully, we'll see you soon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Overtime. I told Titan 45 minutes, and I went in half an hour, so I'm early. He's really going to give it to me. I don't mean he's going to give it to me. I mean he's going to give... moving on. So yesterday we had a very large number of technical issues, and we've learned that we were not the only ones. The technical issues included numerous service outages. We lost the Nightbot Discord, which has nothing to do with me. There are no buttons I could press that just would. So across the United States, a number of servers, Cloudflare, who is the #1 sort of middleware solution for hosting, has been experiencing outages. This could affect any company since almost every company uses Cloudflare at some level in the process. That notwithstanding, there is a, the cold bomb, vortex bomb that is working its way up the East Coast. We're expecting outages across the United States. Internet is getting a little spotty. And I will admit it's a little freaky. It kind of feels like civilization is coming apart when you add all of that with everything else. Having said that, it is, but not to that degree. This is the coldest weather and most damaging storm in 20 years, they say. I'll be honest, I still remember blizzard of 78 in Massachusetts, which was one of our biggest. The snow went up to the second story on most houses. I saw pictures of hallways of snow, and those were the sidewalks. You couldn't see the road because they hadn't plowed out the mailboxes or anything, but you could see the driveways where people could come out. So you'd walk down this, it was a maze of snow, and you would walk down this wall, and you'd finally get there. You'd look to your left and there's a house. You'd look to your right and there's the road, and you look to the front of you and there's another hallway of snow. There'd be people that looked like they were coming out of their front doors. No, they were coming out of their second story decks, but the snow was all the way up to the front. It was crazy. Because this is including ice, it's very damaging. There's going to be power outages and service disruptions in the U.S. It has already affected In Time, and we'll see how it goes going forward. The reason I mentioned that it's affected In Time is because there were two stories yesterday we were supposed to cover, and we bailed because we were losing internet services rapidly. Our Discord failed. My ability to access the live chat failed. In fact, my ability to access most of the streaming services failed. Somehow the stream was continuing. It was remarkable, but we decided to bail before anything else went wrong. Now that we have internet back and restored, two stories we're going to start with. The first that were intended to be mentioned yesterday. Yesterday I gave a rundown of what Trump has done in this in this week, aside from toppling Venezuela, threatening Greenland, alienating all of our European allies, lowering our relationship with those allies to an all-time low, and him hitting an all-time low in his popularity ratings despite the deployments of ICE agents. I'd like to point out, and I think I pointed this out yesterday, but if I didn't, no, I did not. I had asked for our audience to give me some support and look up some numbers. Dorito was kind enough to do so. Dorito went to the memorial page on ICE for fallen officers. These were active duty officers killed who were members of ICE. On that page, there were a total of 67 members of ICE who had been killed while they were members of ICE. That covers a 110-year ICE program. Over 110 years, 67 members of ICE have died. That's less than one a year. The number one cause of death for those members was cancer. Number two cause of death was COVID. Third cause of death was in the line of duty. So, and I mention this because people talk about how tough and dangerous working for ICE is, so they have to use these brutal tactics because you never know when a crazy American citizen with his right to have his gun on him might just go up and blow ICE officer's head off. Except 67 ICE officers have died in the last 110 years, and the vast majority have been due to cancer or COVID. Yeah, ICE is a really dangerous job. It's actually not an unimportant job. I'm not unsympathetic. We do have to have some border controls. We do, period. But it seems like most people trying to get into this country illegally aren't doing so with guns. Unless they're narco traffickers, in which case you deal with that at the border or through the Coast Guard. So, thank you, Dorito, for getting that information. It was quite shocking. I had expected an average of 1 or 2 a year at a minimum. I'd like to point out that in this month alone, we know ICE has killed 4 people. Our suspicion is it is a great deal higher. We're not going to get into how and why right now. We've had that discussion before. We will have it again. We do know one of them was in detention. His throat, the bone in his throat had been broken. What ICE originally said was that they found him in his cell unresponsive. They later admitted when a photo came out from inside ICE, from a detention facility, of them putting in a chokehold that is illegal. No officer in any branch of service is permitted to use this chokehold because it is so lethal. It is, I forget what they call it, a non-equal chokehold. It does not apply pressure equally to the left and to the right. The reason that's a problem is because if you apply pressure if you're a professional, if you know what you're doing, you can choke somebody out by applying equal pressure to the left and to the right. This cuts off both the artery and the vein to the brain. This means blood flow stops going in and out to the brain, and you will lose consciousness in about 15 seconds. It's not a wise idea. The brain is not designed to operate without oxygen. But if you're going to knock somebody out, safest way to do it. Ill-advised, FYI. If you only hit one of those, either the vein or the artery, and leave the other one, it can be extraordinarily dangerous. If, for example, blood flow continues to the brain, but can't leave, what happens is the brain starts losing oxygen because there's no more blood flowing to it, but you haven't cut off the blood flow. So the heart starts pumping up the blood pressure. The reason is because the heart knows you're not getting enough oxygen and is trying to get through whatever the blockage is. But the problem is the blockage is it would be, I think, on this side, for the blood going out, which means the blood pressure in your brain is going up and up and up. This is what killed the subway attacker when they put him in a chokehold and cut off, I believe it was the vein. I get those two confused sometimes. I should just write notes, but not the artery. So blood continued flowing to his head, but wasn't flowing out. And eventually it ruptured the blood vessels in his brain. That is what happens when you apply a chokehold that is a non-equal chokehold. Dorito's going to know a lot more about this, so if he and I disagree, listen to whatever he says in the live chat. At any rate, this kind of chokehold was applied to a detainee in ICE. The medical examiner ruled his death in ICE custody a homicide, meaning somebody murdered him in the detention facility, and it wasn't another detainee. Between that, I keep getting the name wrong. Peretti? I'm going to have to just sit down and memorize that one. And Renee Good. So that's what, 2 more deaths right there. My understanding is a total of 5 deaths. 1 of them already ruled a homicide. The other 2 would be ruled a homicide if a medical examiner were permitted to, or any independent body. It's crystal clear. I mean, Peretti, we've all seen the footage 1,000 times. Was that anything but a homicide? He was on his knees, shot in his back 10 times, and he was unarmed when they fired. And the first one to make contact with someone was the ICE officer, grabbing him so that they could mace him directly in the face, because he was doing the un-American, horrific act of helping a woman off the ground. So, ICE loses, on average, a little more than 1 person every 2 years, usually to cancer. Under Trump, ICE has killed 5 people this year. At least 1 of them already ruled a homicide, and at least 2 more should absolutely be ruled a homicide. So I am unsympathetic to the arguments that ICE faces a tough job. They do face a tough job in one respect, which needs to be understood. This is not a joke. They are not trained for this. They are not trained to deal with American citizens who are protesting. So giving them tear gas, having them go Jim Kirk on this and just say, we're not going to work with the locals. We're not going to inform the police ahead of time. We're just going to go into random joints, fully masked, no identification, start throwing tear gas all over the place and dragging people out by their hair. Oh my God, who would have thought that would have bad consequences? But they're not trained to even do those kinds of actions. ICE 4 years ago was very different than it is now. So, and they're deliberately not trained now because they're trying to instigate so that they can have their war between the blue states and the red states. It's, it's delightful. This administration, I'm not going to make the joke. Anyways, so having said that, I'd like to point out that there is a strong disparity between the perceived danger that ICE faces and of the people that they are so gently protecting from the illegal immigrant who hasn't broken any laws, which represents at a minimum 50% of those that they've detained. Moving forward, China appears to have had a coup attempt. We discussed this a bit yesterday, and we had learned more, but again, we're unable to air. 4 to 5 generals appear to have been replaced. Most of them originally were accused of corruption. The top general, who has been a long-time ally of Ping's, has now been accused of spying for the United States. I find that highly unlikely. Having said that, I have no doubt that carries a death sentence. If there has been an attempted coup, for the most part, Ping is not going to admit it because it's a sign of weakness. So we were trying to figure out, is he just consolidating power, or was this a coup attempt? By removing his top general, he has, thank you. His top general was actually capable of overriding his decisions. So if Ping said, I want to take Taiwan now, if his top general chose not to, he could actually fight him and stop the deployment. Ping would almost certainly eventually win because the general has to eat and drink, and there's going to be cyanide in that at some point. But at least initially, Ping did not have the complete authority over the military. In the absence of that general who's been relieved of duty, the remaining, the sort of commander-in-chief authority falls to Ping. So he has now consolidated what used to be sort of a 60 to 80% control of the military to 100% control of the military. We would consider this just him consolidating, but for the fact that their military has been deployed illegally in China. A column, and we have this on the Discord, of Chinese troops was spotted heading into Beijing, ostensibly to protect it, not to overthrow it. That would mean that they were there on the orders of Ping himself, which means he fears that inside the military, the coup may still be continuing. The general would not attempt this unless he thought he had at least some of the military support. So, at any rate, it's Ping. It's Xi Jinping. Oh dear Lord. Yeah, I'm probably not pronouncing it right. I'm not talking about the top general. I'm talking about the head of China. Let me figure out how to pronounce it correctly, since you'd think, but I got to go through so many names. I was just, first it was all international news, and we were in Ukraine the entire time, so I knew every Ukrainian in the command structure. By the time we get back to Ukraine, it'll all be different, except for Zelensky. Yeah, no, it's Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping. Ugh. And I know it'll click again. Listen. Before you guys start criticizing me, keep in mind, I have not had my 2 liters of Mountain Dew this today. So, and please don't ask about the meme about me drinking that on air, because that was a mistake. That happened once, and I have mods who, for whatever reason, are really fast on the screenshot button. Oh, dear Lord. So, Xi Jinping, who is the supreme ruler of China, and so we believe at this point it was a coup attempt. The fact that the charges against his generals, if he was just consolidating power, he'd might let his generals live as long as he could trust that they'd keep their mouths shut and or even throw their support behind him. But the fact that the charges have been escalated to espionage, he wants them dead. He wants them gone, and the fact that he's deploying troops inside Beijing means that there's been a coup attempt. And from what we can tell, it wasn't particularly successful, because we certainly didn't see any shooting or anything. I don't know. I don't know if it was Project Valkyrie in Germany style. I don't know what it was, but somebody tried to remove him from power, and he's a little pissed. 2 more things, actually 3 more things we got to cover. Quickly, Trump has been going after the Federal Reserve Chairman because the Federal Reserve Chairman is not cutting interest rates. And he finally got so upset that he started an investigation into the Federal Reserve Chairman. Now, This has been condemned by, to the best of my knowledge, just about every business that operates on Wall Street. You'd think it wouldn't be. Wouldn't you want to have control over interest rates? And that's what Trump wants. He wants the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be an independent organization, to modify interest rates at his pleasure. Here's the problem, and this was a problem that was recognized very early on, and one reason why the Fed chair has independence. First of all, I'd like to point out Trump has no idea how this works, because he could get rid of the Fed chair. It wouldn't give him control over interest rates, because it's actually a committee that he's the chairman of that determines whether interest rates go up or down or stay the same. Why is this such a big deal? Well, because the economy is heading south. One thing you can do when an economy heads south is lower interest rates. What this does is it encourages lending, it encourages borrowing, and it stimulates the economy. When our economy was really bad, and especially during COVID, interest rates were basically just dropped to zero and stayed that way. And it wasn't going to, make us have a great economy, but it was going to certainly cushion the blow. Well, why would you raise interest rates? Well, you raise interest rates to keep an economy from overheating. You do not want the economy to get into a position where it's going to collapse because it's overextended itself. So, and by the way, when you raise interest rates, you stabilize the economy. More people will save instead of spending money because interest rates are so high. It means all the cost of products has gone up. So the rate and speed and growth of the economy will go down when interest rates go up, but the stability goes up because more people are saving money instead of spending it. So it's an interesting dichotomy, speaking of tension, because there was a great line in the West Wing where President Bartlett is getting ready to go somewhere, and he gets pissed off when he finds out that the Fed chair is going to increase interest rates. And Charlie, who's the body man, says, well, wait a minute, doesn't that mean that people are going to save more money in case of an emergency? And he goes, yeah, that's what it means. And Charlie's like, well, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that what we want? It's like, well, yeah, but we want that for the next administration. For this administration, we want them spending money. The problem is every administration wants the economy to be as good as possible, but it's a bit like playing chicken towards a cliff, which is eventually the economy is going to collapse if you don't slow it down and make sure that people are saving and that businesses aren't overextending as they grow. So there is an independent body that is apolitical, doesn't care who's in office, doesn't care what promises they've made, doesn't care about anything. Their job is to safeguard the economy by raising or lowering interest rates in whatever way they see fit. Sometimes they make bad decisions. Overall, they do reasonably well. Trump wants to do what every single administration would do if they could. Lower interest rates to zero and keep them that way. This is the kind of thinking that caused the 2008 collapse, because it was just like, well, we're just going to keep doing shit that we know is a terrible idea, but making us a lot of money today because somebody else will have to deal with the consequences, until suddenly everybody's got to deal with the consequences. And every business knows that. No business likes it when the Fed chair raises interest rates. Nobody likes it. The president doesn't like it. Businesses hate it. Banks kind of like it, but banks make more money lending to each other or lending to big business than they do really usually from their customers. So local banks love it. So nobody likes the job, but it has to be done. And you can't trust whoever's in the White House to do it, because they're just going to do it in their own interests. So are the businesses. So the reason it's done by the Fed chair is so that somebody who has nothing to lose politically can make the decisions that we know have to be made, but nobody wants to. That's why the job exists. The Fed chair exists to do other things, but that's why that job falls on the Fed chair as opposed to the president or anybody else. That's why that position has always been independent. I don't think I recall a single president that hasn't criticized the Fed chair and said, now's the time to lower interest rates. And then he raises interest rates. And I'm like, fuck. But their job is to safeguard the economy, not to please the American people, not to make campaign promises. So Trump has been universally condemned by Wall Street, which I delight, because he's now the not NPR. Wow. Yeah, National Public Radio has condemned Trump over gun rights. No. NRA. The NRA has come out. They haven't condemned Trump, but they've said that his language is dangerous. He's threatening the Second Amendment Constitution, and everything he said is wrong. We have that letter on our Discord. They were extremely blunt about it. The Organization for Armed Citizens, or something like that, I'm not a gun guy, has also come out and condemned the administration for their comments on how Peretti was shot because he was carrying a gun. Like, that's illegal. You cannot shoot somebody for carrying a gun in an open carry state. You cannot do it. In fact, you can't use the fact that they're carrying a gun as suspicion that they're doing something wrong. The Supreme Court ruled on that in a decision, by the way, that the conservatives who are in charge right now were for. So the Fed chair is, I think today, testifying in his own corruption trial. Trump is attempting to get him removed. Even if Trump removes him, the committee still votes, but it looks like what he's attempting to do is remove him with somebody that he can put in his place and who can direct the committee and pressure the committee in certain ways. This is a really bad idea, because while he can do short-term fixes to the economy, and he can boost the economy by dropping interest rates to zero, you'll see the boost. It is at, especially given where our economy is today, and especially given the tariffs, that is extraordinarily dangerous for the midterm future. Midterm, by that I mean 2 to 4 years. That's risking an economic collapse. That's why they're not doing it. And again, for all their complaints, Wall Street is fully aware of how that works. Nice to see him hemorrhaging support on Wall Street, too. So those hearings have started. Actually, they ended earlier today. So right before we aired, the first hearing into the Fed chair was concluded. There's going to be more hearings, and the Fed has decided to pause interest rate cuts. They're not going to increase it, but they're not going to decrease it either. Trump's going to be livid at that. Also, we have learned that the FBI is executing a search warrant at Fulton County election offices in Georgia to investigate the 2020 election. We're back at 2020. This is how petty Trump is. He's investigating 2020. It's not like he could undo it. I almost wish he could, just because it's like, oh, okay, well, so you were president between, you did win, so you were president between 2020 and 24, but Biden was making all the decisions. You, for whatever reason, were just sitting in your home, but that was your second term, so this term is completely invalid and you can never run again. Sorry, you've had your 2 terms. You blew your 2024 term. Have a nice day. Can't do that either, because you can't roll back. The election was certified. It doesn't, oh my God. Okay. And the 2 officers, well, it says federal agents involved in the shooting of Peretti have been put on leave. That's the first time they've done what they're supposed to do. And I'd like to point out, the officers are innocent. until proven guilty. Peretti, Jesus, is innocent until proven guilty. Both sides are innocent until proven guilty. I don't expect these officers to just be tossed in jail. I expect a full investigation from an independent source, and then the consequences to come on whoever they find probable cause. They get the evidence, and then if they believe there's enough to convict, they indict and go forward. I have zero doubt in my mind, having seen the footage, where that's going to lead if that process is followed. But it may sound counterintuitive, but the officers are completely innocent until they're proven guilty in a court of law. So is Peretti. So you can't sit there and say, oh, he was brandishing a gun, case closed. No. He had rights. Let's find out what happened. I know it's a shock to ask for justice in America nowadays, but if we don't make sure those rights are followed to the letter, we're going to lose them all, and we're already starting to, as everybody here is well aware. Kristi Noam has had articles of impeachment that have, I believe, cleared the judiciary, meaning they are now up before the full House for a vote. I don't know if the vote's going to happen today, but I do know that they are giving each congressman 5 minutes to speak as they debate the vote. If the vote passes the House, it will go on to the Senate, and if it passes there, she will be impeached. What this means is that there is going to be a trial to try to remove her from office. I've been seeing some of the hearing. It has been contentious. They have brought up things that she's done, really horrific things that I had forgotten about, where you're like, I liked you better when I only knew you had shot puppies in the face. I have gotten word that she has actually walked out of the hearing. We have knocked this back some so that you can see sometime. This is the AP. Let's see. This is the AP bouncing off the Times network, bouncing to us. So, but this is the Associated Press stream of that hearing. This is what we're going to do. And we do this. The January 6th hearings we covered in their entirety, but Trump's impeachment, the hearing went on for 2 or 3 hours. We don't know how long this is going to go on, and it will be unattended by myself. For some of the time, I'll probably be listening 90% of the time, but I'm not going to be sitting in this chair because I'm not going to be doing commentary on it. We will be having mods in the live chat the whole time, and I would like to remind people about our policy on Fed posting. I don't care who says what about who. You are not permitted to threaten the life of anybody, even jokingly. We have told our mods that they are not permitted to decide whether it was a joke or not. If they see it, and if it's a threat against anybody, they're to respond basically based on their judgment and the level of threat, whether it's a warning or instant boot. We have excellent mods. They know what they're doing. But I really would like to remind our audience, they've been told they're not permitted to exercise their judgment insofar as it was a joke or not. So you can argue with them. Oh, it was just a joke. Okay. Doesn't matter. Has zero bearing on it. And if you don't like that policy, you can talk to the guy who implemented and is enforcing that policy. His name is Nick Suter, and you can find him on our Discord. I will be, for those who are listening, Titan and others, I will be on the Discord still nonetheless, even if I'm not right on this stream, because this may go 4 or 5 hours, and I don't plan on doing commentary. I think it's going to speak for itself. There are many places you can listen to this too, and we did want to report one other thing. Many channels are carrying this. First of all, if you would like to stay and watch it here, it's a way to support us, just like liking and subscribing. The YouTube notices it in the algorithm. The other thing is, a number of channels have been slightly dishonest about this. More than half of the channels covering this have said Trump impeachment hearings. No. You can see it on the thumbnails. No. It is an impeachment hearing. That is true, and it is for a member of the Trump administration, but it's Kristi Noem. That's what it is. And if you scroll through YouTube and get the sudden warm feeling, oh, your heart, it's like you're in love again because you see Trump impeachment hearing, they're lying to you. It's clickbait. There are articles of impeachment that have been dropped against him a while back. Those have not moved forward at all. They're still in committee and won't be moving forward for quite some time at least. What we are covering here is what you see on a number of different channels. Some of them say it's the Kristi Noem impeachment. Most of them say it's the Trump impeachment. It's all the same video. We appreciate you watching it here with us. If something really crazy happens, I may jump in and comment there. Some of it's been contentious. She has more supporters than I thought in Congress. But she's done more truly evil things than I remember too. So we will be carrying this. There will always be a mod, even if they're lurking in the live chat. And I would like to, we haven't had, Fed posting has not been a huge issue. Threats, it hasn't been a huge issue. We've had maybe one minor problem with it every week or two. Only one serious problem with it since the whole thing started. It's not a huge thing, but it's a zero tolerance policy. So you just have to be made aware. Even if I'm not here, the mods are. And I'm still listening. I'm just maybe going to get some lunch because there's nothing I can say or do right now as it goes. So, and you can do the same and listen, and we will all listen together. So let me make sure that we can hear this. And it still says Trump impeachment live. Holy smoke, are people dishonest? Titan. If any of my mods, anybody who's Dorito, anybody who's been Bregwin, anybody who's been here from the beginning, yes, I will make my thumbnails as dramatic as possible given the facts. But I'm not going to lie. We do clickbait in the sense that, we'll be as dramatic as possible because I want people to come. Because we need to keep our heads above water. If you got anybody who's been with the show from the beginning, if I ever lie like this, remind me that I instructed all of you to quit. This is not acceptable. If I've become the enemy, if this is your, and it's been dropped, Titan. Yeah, it's been dropped on our Discord, but it's a link. It's a good link. But the title is Trump impeachment on our Discord. Trump is, no. It's a fucking clickbait lie, and it's making the internet unusable. All right, enough of me complaining.
I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Pfluger, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's unfortunate that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle for 5 straight years now have no concern for anything worldwide threats-wise. And I have proven that. We're supposed to be talking about worldwide threats, but unfortunately, we're talking about homeland threats in our homeland. And Director, can you just reaffirm the number for us of people that match the terror watch list that are in our country?
There's 18,000 known and suspected terrorists in the country right now that came in under Joe Biden's watch.
18,000.
18,000.
That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And that's just what we know of, Congressman.
Secretary, despite even members on this committee that have called our law enforcement and ICE and DHS and Border Patrol and other agents names and slandered them, I support you and I support what you're doing to secure the homeland. The Working Families Tax Act allocated $13.5 billion to the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice to reimburse states for the cost of the Biden-Harris administration's open border policies. No state suffered more than Texas. Fentanyl, drug and human trafficking, violent crime, stress on local emergency response services caused substantial damage to my district, to our state, to my constituents, to people that live and work in Texas. And in response, our state launched Operation Lone Star to secure the border when the Biden administration abdicated their responsibility to do that. We built miles of border wall. We had other barriers. We deployed state troopers, National Guard to deter the invasion that we suffered during this time period, which cost our state over $11 billion. And so as part of this Working Families Tax Act, we allocated $13.5 billion to reimburse those states. Last month, along with our senators, I led the Republican Texas delegation in sending a letter to you and Attorney General Bondi highlighting this and requesting that the state of Texas be fully reimbursed. And I wanted to get a status on that reimbursement today.
Yes, thank you. And we still to this day remain incredibly grateful to the state of Texas for their leadership during that time. That was challenging times, devastating times for what we saw happening down there. And Texas stepped up in a way that was absolutely incredible. So yes, those dollars are being formulated and allocated. If you remember, many states deployed their National Guard down there. I was governor of South Dakota at that time, and my National Guard was deployed down there as well. So reconciling the costs for every single state and looking at that allocation, we're making sure we're doing due diligence to make sure that it's appropriated correctly.
And just to be clear, I want to make sure that that money does come in the form of the reimbursement to Texas.
That's what we're working with the White House on doing, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to what Director Kent talked about, these 18,000 people, can you give us an idea of who these people are, what type of threat they pose to us? We saw it wasn't some accident. This was an assassination and a murder. It was not an accident, despite my colleagues saying that it was an accident. It was a murder and an assassination of a National Guard hero. So what other types of threats are you tracking and preventing from happening?
Yeah, I would say, sir, that we face the terrorists that we've faced for years in ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, individuals that are here that are radicalized, but also we face the cartels as they've infiltrated our country under the last administration, their proliferation of human trafficking, drugs, and violence, going after Tren de Aragua as well, MS-13. Those individuals are still a very real, clear danger every day on the streets, and we encounter them, arrest them, and deport them and bring them to justice each and every day. Beyond that, sir, you even have gangs in cities that are localized that are terrorist organizations. The Latin Kings in Chicago are absolutely terrorists to their communities, and we work every day to make sure that we're protecting those communities. So I could not prioritize one over another because they're all killers. They're all killers, and they all are destroying families each and every day.
For both you and Director Kent, do terrorist organizations around the world, such as ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and others?
I said I wasn't going to interrupt this. I can't help. I'm going to have to leave so that I don't just like rage interrupt every. So she's saying that a drug organization, which, by the way, try not to kill anybody in the U.S. because when they kill people in the U.S., A, they're killing off customers, and B, they're killing, they can attract attention, and they don't, cartels aren't having war. They're having wars in Mexico, but they solve it in Mexico. They don't fight here deliberately. Those drug cartels are equal to Al-Qaeda as a threat. I think the state of New York would be among many that would disagree with that.
Still have an intent to attack America, to attack our homeland, to utilize every method?
Absolutely. Our intelligence and our information that we deal with every single day is addressing those threats on our
She has intelligence. Who knew?
Streets here in the United States.
Director Kent, can you give us an idea of what those tactics, techniques, and procedures could be that we need to stay alert of?
Honestly, the attacks of October 7th, the decentralized and just barbaric nature of that is the new terrorist playbook. They're not looking necessarily for a spectacular attack like we had on 9/11, but targets of opportunity like we tragically saw with the terrorist attack in Washington, D.C., these smaller cells or even individual operatives taking action. That's what has us very concerned, combined with just the sheer volume.
My time has expired, Secretary. Thank you for your commitment to reimburse Texas. I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questions.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported?
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
I don't believe you served in the military. I haven't either, but I think you and I can agree that as Americans, we owe everything to those who have served our country in uniform, particularly those who have served in combat. Do you agree with that?
Sir, I believe that people that are in this United States that are citizens have legal status here.
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named 𝐒𝐨𝐿 Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. Like many veterans, he struggled with PTSD and substance abuse after his service. He was arrested in the 1990s for some minor drug offenses, nothing serious. He never hurt anyone besides himself, and he's been clean and sober for 14 years. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country and follows our laws.
Can you please tell
and knows
Mr.
that our
Park
laws
why
are
you
important
deported
and
him?
Every one of them needs to be enforced.
But you understand that many veterans struggle with PTSD, many veterans struggle with substance abuse challenges. This man took 2 bullets for our country. You have broad authority, by the way, as Secretary, to issue humanitarian parole, to do deferred action. Will you commit to at least looking at Mr. Park's case to see if you can help him find a pathway back to this country that he sacrificed so much for?
I will absolutely look at his case, but I want you to remember that
Madam
our
Secretary, the
programs
man
need to have
behind you,
integrity as
please
well.
stand up, sir. His name is Jim Brown from Troy, Missouri. He is a Navy combat veteran who served our country in the Gulf War. He's married to a woman named Donna, who came to our country legally from Ireland when she was 11 years old. She has lived here for 48 years. Because of you, Jim's wife, Donna, has been in prison for the last 4 months. She did not come here illegally, and she has never committed any crime other than writing 2 bad checks totaling $80 10 years ago. She is currently in prison and facing deportation. Ms. Noam, will you thank Mr. Brown for his service to our country?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your service to our country.
Now, what possible explanation can there be for
All right. I've heard all of this before. So, I realize I keep saying cipher, but there is an H in there. So, Scheifer will have to explain how to pronounce it, but he picked up on it too. So, there are a number of news channels carrying this. They are saying it is live. They have the AP logo on it, so they appear to be bouncing it off of AP, but I mean, this is, let me hit this live. So this is I just hit the live button on the live stream.
Completely shocked why all these terrorists are in our country and all these people are unvetted, all this.
So I have warned repeatedly our researchers of this, and I have now fallen prey to it too, which is a number of channels that take old content, rebrand it, and say it is live. This is not live. So, yeah, Cypher, that was that guy in particular. I remembered, I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, is this the same guy using the same technique as he did last time, or is this something different? So this is not the Noam impeachment. The articles of impeachment have dropped, but they are not holding the impeachment hearings today. So that is our bad. That's my bad. I checked and saw multiple versions of this from multiple sources, most of them renaming it as the Trump impeachment, which should have caused me to think about it an extra second before going with it. But yeah, it was deja vu. We're all, so my apologies, because your time is precious. My time is precious. Anybody who knows me knows I dislike very little more than wasting people's time, and we have wasted at least a few minutes of it with this hearing. This we've already heard. We're going to find out the status of this hearing and the not this hearing, because this thing was months ago, and she did walk out of it. I remember that, and I was sitting there going, didn't someone walk out of a hearing a few months ago? Was that Pam? Maybe that was Kristi Noem too. She walks out of a lot of hearings. So, yeah, this was a bad hearing. She was horrific in it, and she is still. The articles of impeachment against her have dropped. The Largest union for federal workers. It represents 800,000 federal workers, has called for the removal of her and Stephen Miller. I would like to make something crystal clear. Stephen Miller is probably a bigger threat than Donald Trump by a significant margin. The reason for this is a bit like the reason Karl Rove was at least a bigger problem for the United States than George W. Bush. Miller is the architect of everything that Trump says or does. He is his top advisor, and he scares me because most people don't pay attention to him, and he likes it that way. Those are the people you have to watch out for. It's the person who's in the back of the room, quiet, pretending to be reading a book while they're actually listening to everything everybody says. That's Miller. And he is a chief representative of the Heritage. He is the sole he's the chief representative of the Heritage Foundation in the Trump administration, one of the chief architects of 2025. And while his position is, if I recall, deputy chief of staff, which places him below cabinet level offices, he actually orders them around because everybody knows he's Trump's right-hand guy. When he speaks, it's for Trump, and he has said as much, and he's not kidding. So I was very glad to see them going after Miller. The reason they went after Miller, they say, is because Miller was responsible for the policies that Noam was enacting that allowed Peretti to be shot. Responsible? He's responsible for just about everything Trump has done since this started. Trump doesn't have the brains to organize what's been going on. Miller does, and Miller has made it clear that this is what he wants to see, and this is what's happening. I am delighted to see an organization. I keep Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel all in office if you get rid of Miller, and don't replace him with somebody like him. Replace him with just a stooge. I would make that. I would make that trade. As much as all of those guys are destroying the institutions that they're in, they were enabled and put there by Miller, and Miller is the smart one, so he knows, yeah. My hope is that 800,000 federal workers in a union calling for his ouster would be successful. My suspicion is Miller is a wannabe alpha male. When he's in positions of power, he bloviates, and he literally said, "Who would ever dare stop us from taking Greenland?" Said that on air. And he knew he was on air. He was just giving an interview. It's like, would you really take Greenland? Well, who would dare stop us? Talk about the dumbest things you could say, and talk about sticking your chest out like a peacock. But he only does that when he's got nuclear weapons at his back. When he doesn't, yeah, he's the little kid who got bullied every day on the bus to school, which is probably part of why he acts the way he does now. But regardless, I have a sneaking suspicion that if 800,000, a union representing 800,000 members of the federal government decided he needs to go, he'd sit there and say, we don't need 800,000, fire them all. Which may run afoul of union laws, but at least that's what he'd say. I don't think it's going to have any impact on him. So we'll keep an eye on that. I think that's important too. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm glad we were able to cover the stories we missed yesterday. I apologize for playing the old video, and we will, I don't know the likelihood of a downtime later tonight. Oh, no, not downtime. A rundown later tonight. It really depends on what happens news-wise. If it's one or two things of medium or low interest, we'll probably just keep it to the Discord so you can see it there. Otherwise, we'll go breaking. Let me double-check for any super chats, too. I realized I didn't check for that. And Everything's caught up. All right, perfect. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you ostensibly tomorrow night with Commander Lance McMillan for a interesting take, I think, on where we stand with Trump's first month in his second year. It's been a doozy. Have a good one.